day, good day everyone. So I'm Aliño. I am going to present and discuss the definition of logistic regression and classification. So logistic regression, also called as logit model, it is used to model the continuous outcome variable. In the logit model, the log odds of the outcome is modeled in a combination of predictor variable. So, logistic regression din po ay ginagamit din po in a machine algorithm. Is a machine algorithm wherein ginagamit po siya sa mga probability analysis or predictor analysis. Okay, so for example po ng mga logistic regression, for example po kung saan ginagamit yung logistic regression ay sa mga survey po to identify kung ano po yung magiging resulta. For example, kung gusto niyo pong malaman kung ano yung kung ba itong sa election na to, mananalo po ba yung bata nyo, yes or no. Basta po, ginagamit yung logistic regression kung kung ang situation is answerable with a yes or no, true or false, or success or fail. And under of logistic regression is the logistic regression model. Ito po yun. Ito po yung logistic regression model. In 1938, Ronald Fisher and Frank Yates suggested the logic thing for regression with a binary response variable. In 1938 po, so these two persons named Ronald Fisher and Frank Yates suggested that when using logic regression, so kailangan yung mga i-input natin doon ay kailangan will be a response in the binary variable or predictor variable binary. So, yun yung resulta niya. Sabi po dito na ang logistic regression model can be extended to a model category response variable with more two categories. So, the resulting model, yung unang pwede discuss ay yung unang category ng logistic regression model, the resulting model, na kung saan tinatawag po itong multinomial logistic regression model. So, in contrast po ito sa binomial logistic regression for a binary response, ito naman po ay madamihan po, kaya po siya tinawag na multinomial. So, the model of logistic regression is written is po siya, ay, para po mas malinaw natin identify kung ano po yung ibig sabihin ng logistic regression na ay ito po. Okay. So, logistic regression po is the most popular model for binary. It is used to study the relationship between binary response variable in a group of predictors. So, can be either continuous or categorical. So, when sabi ko nga po kanina na ginagamit po yung logistic regression just to identify to analyze po yung isang case if it is answerable, if the case or the scenario or the question is answerable with this binary response or if it's true or false. So, ganun din po yung sa logistic regression. Okay, so for more reasonable modeling, kung makikita nyo po, ay ito po yung predictor. So, ito po yung sa predictor, ano po tayo, di ba, kung meron tayo mga response or mga variable na kailangan sa isang survey o sa isang analysis, di ba po, meron tayong mga ini-input na mga variables. So, yun po yung mga variables na yun, yun po yung mga yun po yung samples of predictors na ini-input natin or nilalagay natin doon sa ating sa ating survey or sa ating study. So, pag gagamit tayo ng logistic regression model, okay, so yung mga tinatransform niya yung ating mga variable into like this. Okay. Kasi kung ang mga predictors kasi natin, di ba, that survey na ginagawa, pag naibigay niya natin, nakuha natin yung result, done. Tapos na po. Pero when it comes to logistic regression, tuloy-tuloy po yung pag-identify kung based doon sa mga variable na in-input natin. So, in the simple logistic regression po, ayan, the regression coefficient, ayan, ay, ito po, the interpretation that is the log of odds ratio of the success event of y is equal to 1 for a unit change in x. So, ito pong ibig po niyan, ayan po yung pag mayroon po kayo in the logistic regression po, yung coefficient niya po, coefficient 1, ay ibig sabihin po niyan is the log of odds ratio of success of event of y is equal to 1. So, every time po na may nire-respond, mayroon po kayong ini-input na variable for a unit of change in x. So, this is the formula that use logistic regression. So, i-identify lang po yung result, yung variable ni y para po malaman nyo din po yung value ni x. Okay. Kasi nga po, di ba po, binary lang. So, two numbers. Pero kung multi-predictor variables naman po, ito po yung magiging formula niya. And then, para po mas malinaw natin maintindihan kung ano po ba yung mga ibig sabihin ng mga symbols dito po sa logistic regression model. So, IN is the natural logarithm function. So, ito po yun. Pi is the probability of success. So, P is predictor, Y is equal to 1. So, ito po yung ibig sabihin ng pi sa taas. Coefficient 0 is the y-intercept. K is the first order logistic regression coefficient for the K predictor. And KX, XK, K predictor. So, there can be either quantitative or categorical. So, dun sa logistic regression model natin na equation ay pwede tayong gumamit ng iba pang equation just to get the result of the binary response variable or para po makuha natin yung resulta. Okay, pwede tayong gumamit ng alternative model equation at ito po yun. So, nga lang medyo iba siya doon sa kanina. So, EY po, ito po yun, ay it is the expected value of the logic model. Okay? So, tapos yung PY is equal to 1, it is the probability of success. So, counterpart po nito yung pi kanina do sa logistic model. So, the rest din po is parehas lang din naman po yan. Yung coefficient 0, coefficient K, and K, XK is the value of K predictor. So, it's either po, pwede nyo pong gamitin sa dalawa. Kung yung linear regression model or po itong alternative model equation. So, meron tayong sa dito na na analysis were magagamit natin itong logistic regression. Okay? So, sa sample natin, meron tayong, sabi nga po ito, there are 200 high school students na kailangan with measurements of various tests including science, math, reading, and social studies. The response variable is high writing test scores, where a high writing scores greater than or equal to 60 is considered high and less than 60 considered low, from which we explore its relationship with gender, female, reading test score, read, and science test score is science. So, dito po, ang pinapa-analyze po dito sa sample natin, logistic regression po, ay kailangan natin ma-identify po from the 200 student po, okay, kailangan natin ma-identify is that ano po yung highest writing test scores ng 200 student from the various tests such as from the different subjects such as math, reading, and social studies. So this is the sample of the logistic regression SAS procedure po. Identify po natin kung ano po yung mga ano ba yung nagiging resulta. Sabi po dito, di ba, where a right score equal to 60 is considered high and less than 60 is considered low. So, yun po yung kailangan ma-identify natin. At malalaman nyo po yan po yung magiging resulta. Pag descending po yung option natin, yan po doon sa logistic natin, doon sa result. So, masasort po niya po yung descending nyo po pala po yung inyong code doon sa SAS. So, automatic, highest to lowest po yung sort niya po. So, by default po, SAS model probability lower binary response setting would event of the interest as one distribution model probability. Okay, so yan po yung descending. So, descending option po, automatic, aayusin niyo po yan to lowest to highest category. So, this is the naging result ng logistic ng SAS output natin kanina. So, makikita nyo po dito na mataas po ang score nila comes to science. Yeah. And then, so logistic and GENMOD procedure for a single continuous predictor. So this is the code, or this is the code na gamit po to test po yung single continuous predictor. So you're going to put the data set, responses, and the keyword and the name po dito po para po malaman nyo po yung resulta. The GENMOD procedure is much more generalized than the logistic procedure as it accommodates other generators in your model and also cope with your measure, and it's not required for exam. So yun po yung ginagamit. And then for the dichotomous for the other discussion, so I will transfer the screen to Mr. Garfel Leri.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aliño. So, good day, everyone. I'm Garfel V, Leri, one of the presenters. So, I will be continuing our presentation. So we talk about logistic regression with one predictor. So in coefficient 0 and coefficient 1 are unknown parameters and must be estimated using statistical software such as statistical analysis system or R. So R is a open source system used in statistical data. So primary interest in estimating and testing hypotheses. So regarding coefficient 1, so where SE or stands for standard error, so large sample test or wild test. So we have H0 or coefficient 1 is equal to 0 and HA coefficient 1 is not equal to 0. So we have example here, Rizatriptan for migraine. So if you want to respond complete pain after complete pain relief after 2 hours, yes or no. So the predictor dose, is dose milligram, placebo 0 to 2.5, 5, and 10. So as you can see in the table, so we have 0, 2.5, 5, and 10 in the dose. The number of patients, we have 67, 75, 130, and 145. So here is the number of relief, 2, 7, 29, and 40. And the percentage of relief, 3.0, 9.3, 22.3, 27.6. So statistical analysis system data. So we have dose 0 and number of patients 67, the number of relief 2, and percentage of relief 3.0. The second column, we have 2.5, 75, 7, and 9.3. We have also 5, 130, 29, 22.3, and we have last one is 10, 145, 40, 27.6. So the Y here stands for yes or no. If yes, 1. If no, 0. So we have the number of also the number of dose and number. So in class procedure, proc logistic data is equal to drug descending, model Y is equal to dose, and frequency, number, and run. So we have also the table, it is the variable in the equation. So the interpretation of a single continuous parameter, so the sign positive and negative of coefficient 1 determines whether the log odds of Y is increasing or decreasing for every 1 unit increase in X. So if coefficient 1 is greater than 0, there is an increase in the log odds of Y for every 1 unit increase in X. So if coefficient 1 is less than 0, there is a decrease in the log odds of Y for every 1 unit increase in X. And if coefficient 1 is equal to 0, there is no linear relationship between the log odds and the X. Let's go now to the to add ratio. So the interpretation of regression coefficient 1 is first linear regression. The slope coefficient is the change in the mean response as X increased by 1 unit. So in logic regression or logistic regression, we can show that odds X plus 1 divided by odds X is equals to E coefficient 1, and odds X is equals to pi X over 1 minus pi open parenthesis X. So thus E coefficient represents the change in the odds of the outcome multiplicatively by increasing by 1 unit. So if coefficient 1 is equal to 0, the odds and probability are the same at all X level. So E coefficient 1 is equal to 1. If coefficient 1 is greater than 0, the odds and probability increase as x increases. So E coefficient 1 is greater than 1. So if coefficient 1 is less than 0, the addition probability decreases as x increases in E coefficient 1 is less than 1. So in 95% confidence interval for odds ratio, so let's have step 1. Construct a 95% CI for coefficient. So we have coefficient 1, positive negative 1.96 times standard error coefficient 1. So we have here coefficient 1 minus 1.96 times standard error coefficient 1, and coefficient 1 plus positive 1.96 times standard error coefficient 1. Step 2, we can raise E is equals to 2.718 to the lower and upper bounds of the CI. If the entire interval is above 1, conclude positive association. If entire interval is below 1, conclude negative association. If interval contains 1, it cannot conclude there is an association. So 95% CI for B1, coefficient 1. Coefficient 1 is equal to 0.165. Standard error is 0.3037, and 95% of CI 0.165, positive negative 1.96, open parenthesis 0.037 is equal to 0.0925 and 0.2375. 95% CI for population odds ratio. So we have E.0925 and E.2375 equals to 1.10 and 1.27. So to conclude positive association between those and probability of complete failure. Logistic regression model with a single categorical greater than equal to level predictor. So logic PK is equals to log odds coefficient 0 plus coefficient kxk. So where logic PK, logic transformation for the probability of the event, intercept of the regression line. So the intercept of regression line is the coefficient 0, and coefficient k is the difference between the logic for category k versus the reference category. Okay, so we have here the logistic and GENMOD procedures for a single categorical predictor. Okay, the class statement in proc logistics. So the statistical analysis system will create dummy variables for a categorical variable if we tell it to. So we need to specify the dummy coding by using the param. The param is equals to ref option in the class statement. So we can also specify the comparison group by using the ref is equals to option after the variable name. Using class automatically generates a test of significance for all parameters associated with the class variable. So we have table of type 3 test. So if you use dummy variable instead, more on this soon, you will not automatically get an overall test for that variable. So in reference category, each factor has as many parameters as categories, but one is redundant. So we need to specify a reference category, similar concept to what you have just learned in the linear regression analysis. In interpretation of a single categorical parameter, if your reference group is level 0, then the coefficient k represents the difference in the log odds between level k of your variable and level 0. So therefore, coefficient k is an odds ratio for category k versus the reference category of x. So now, let's create your own dummy variables and not using the class statement. So in this statement, an equivalent model uses dummy variable so that you create, which accounts for redundancy by not including a dummy variable for your reference category. The choice of reference category is arbitrary. Remember, this method will not produce an overall test or significance for that variable. In multiple logistic regression, extension to more than one predictor, a variable, or it's either numeric or dummy variable with k predictors, the model is taken. So in the formula, adjusted odd ratio for raising xi by 1 unit, holding all other predictors constant. So ORI equals to E coefficient I. So many models have nominal or ordinal predictors and widely take use of dummy variables. Testing the overall model. So we have HO coefficient 1 is equal to coefficient k is equal to 0. HA, not all coefficient I is equal to 0. CSX, the second power of, is equal to negative 2 log minus 2 log L1. As far, so forth. So, L0 and L1 are values of the maximized likelihood function computed by the statistical software package. So this logic can also be used to compare full and reduced models based on the subsets of predictors. Testing of individual terms is done as in model with a single predictor. So example, ED in older Dutchmen. So the response, presence, or absence of ED n is equals to 1688 and predictor P is equals to 12. So age sternum, so we have 50 to 54 years old, 55 to 59 years old, 60 to 64, 65 to 69, and 70 to 78. So we have smoking status, we have non-smoker or smoker. And the BMI sternum, we have less than 25, 25 to 30, and greater than 30. So we have also lower urinary tract symptoms, non-mild, moderate, severe, under treatment for cardiac symptom, no, yes or no, under treatment for COPD, yes or no. So this is baseline group for dummy variables. So for the next presenter, I will give the floor to Mr. Aaron Estores.
Hi, I'm the third reporter of our group in logistic. What's that? Logistic regression and classification. Our topic is the example of ED in older Dutchmen. This is the example of the table. Predictor, just OR 95%, C1. Interpretation, risk of ED appears to be increasing with age, BMI, and LUTS strata, higher among smokers, higher among men being treated for cardiac or COPD. Logistic regression variable selection. Feature selection. Stepwise variable selection. Best subset variable selection. Find the subset of the variable that are sufficient for explaining their joint effect on the response. The next is regularization. Maximum penalized likelihood. Shrinking the parameters by an L1 constraint, imposing a margin constraint in the separable case. Okay. The next is predicted values. The output of logic model is the predicted probability of a success for each observation. These are obtained and stored in a separate SAS data set using the output statement. Okay, did you see this following code? DM log clear out clear. Proc logistic data equal W1 outbreak descending model disease A equals to H divide CL. Then output out means display. L out P is equal to P, L is equal to L, U is equal to U. Then run. Okay. Next is proc logistic outputs the predicted values and 95% CI limits to an output data set that also contains the original row of data. Okay, this is the example of the SAS system or SAS system. Predicted values. Use the pred probs equal I option in order to obtain the predicted category, which is saved in the into variable. Uh, this is the example of code like ano like tulad kanina. DM log clear out clear. Proc logistic data is equal to OB2 descending. Okay. Model disease age is equal age divide CL. Output out equal to L out PP P equal P L equal L U equal U. At nadagdagan siya ng pred prob equal to I, excuse me. Then run. Predicted values from underscore from equal yung the observed response category equal the same value as the response variable. Okay. This is the second table example of the SAS system. That from then into, it's just like the same. Into equal to the predicted response category. Then IP1 is equal to the individual probability of a response of 1. Storing observation in SAS. Obtaining predicted probabilities and predicted outcomes. For now, observation example, scoring new observations. That is done in logit modeling using the same procedure we use in scoring new observation in linear regression. Scoring 1. Create a new data set with a desired value of the x variable and the y variable set to missing. Merge the new data set with the original data set. That's number 2. And 3. Refit the final model using proc logistic using the output statement. This is the classification table and rates. The classification table is used to summarize the result of the prediction and to ultimately evaluate the fitness of the model. Obtain a classification table using proc frequency or frec free Q. proc frequency data is equal to L out. That's the example. Tables from into. It's just like SQL. SQL looks like SQL query. Classification table and rates. The observed or actual response is in rows and the predicted response in columns. This is the example table of this observed or actual response. Correct classification are summarized on the main. What's this? Shit. Excuse. Edit natin na. Okay. I summarize on the main. This is the example. The total number of correct classification. Okay. Example hits is the sum of the main diagonal frequency. 0 is equal to 130 plus 9 is equal to 139. Okay. Classification table rates. The total group hit rate is the ratio of O and N. HR is equal to 139 divided 196 equal to 698.698. The individual group hit rates can also be calculated. These are essentially the row percents on the main diagonal. The next is LDA versus logistic regression. LDA generative model assumes quotient class condition, densities, and a common covariance. Model parameters are estimated by maximizing the full log likelihood parameters for each class are estimated independently of other classes. Kp plus p, then p plus 1 divide 2 plus k minus 1 parameters. Okay. Make use of marginal density information, PRX. Easier to train, low variance, more efficient if model is correct. So medyo risky. Higher asymptotic error but converge faster. Excuse me. Logistic regression discriminative model. Yung pinagkaiba nila. Yung CLDA is generative model. Si logistic regression is discriminative model. Assume class conditional densities are members of the same exponential family distribution. Model parameters are estimated by maximizing the conditional likelihood. Simultaneous consideration of the all other classes. Ignores marginal density information. Harder to train, robust, and to uncertainty about the data generation process. Lower asymptomatic error but converge more slowly. But dito is higher asymptomatic error but converge faster. Baliktad sila. Generative versus discriminative learning. Discriminative learning. Generative example, linear discriminant analysis, logistic regression naman kay discriminative. An objective function kay generative is full log likelihood. Kay discriminative is conditional log likelihood. Model assumption class kay generative class densities, kay discriminant function. Parameter estimation is C. One single sweep kay generative and kay discriminative is hard. Iterative optimization. Advantage. More efficient if model correct, borrows strength from Px. Okay, discriminative naman ay more flexible, robust because fewer assumption. Okay. Disadvantage. Bias if model is incorrect. May also be bias. Ignores information in generative. This link between LDA, QDA, and logistic regression. Suppose we classify by computing a posterior probability. The posterior was calculated by modeling likelihood and prior for each class. In LDA and QDA, we compute the posterior assuming that each class distribution was Gaussian with equal LDA or unequal QDA variance. In logistic regression, we directly the posterior as function of the variable x. In practice, when there are k class to classify, we model. Okay. Classification by maximizing distribution. In this example, we assume that the two distributions for the classes have equal variance. Suppose we want to classify a person as male, female based on height. What we have is P. This is the example and what we want. Height is a normal distributed in the population of men and in the population of women. With the different means and similar variance, let y be an indicator variable for being a female, then the conditional distribution of x. Okay. Posterior probability for classification when we have two classes of equal variance. This is the example. Computing the probability that the subject is female given the we observe height x. Okay. Logistic regression assumption of equal variance among density of the classes implies a linear decision boundary. This is the example of boundary of the class. The last is modeling in the posterior when the density have an equal variance. This is the last example. Thank you for listening, and this is the last topic of our report. Putang ina mo.